Awesome. Now that we have this running, we're going to run through a couple of quick commands just so you know how to move around in this editor. The list of controls can be found at the link. We're just going to go through it visually. So first thing you ought to realize is that this is a grid-based editor, so you can be very precise with your drag and drops and your room sizes. And in order you can zoom in and out with the mouse wheel. If you right click, you can sort of get this pivot effect. Um, uh, so in order to move around with the camera, it's kind of in the this compiled version, it's a little bit wonky, but you use the arrow keys. You can't use the WASD. I believe there's other compiled versions which let you use WASD, but anyway, it's fairly easy to move around. You can also so you'll see that if you press the number keys, your grid size will change, and that's handy. Now, if we go into the texture, we'll see that this isn't set yet, and we're gonna go and fix that right now. So the reason why we're not seeing the textures is because this guide told us in the setup to put the um, map package 3 folder in the users data, but that was incorrect. If you go to, there's a thread on the Xonotic forums where somebody was having this issue, and their solution was to actually put the map package 3 folder into the Xonotic data folder. So that's what we're going to do right now. So let's go to where you initially put the map packing 3, and we're actually going to take that. We'll just copy it and put it in the place where you downloaded Xonotic. So, alright, data, and we can drop this in here. So you see that there's a bunch of PK3 files, and then maps PK3, and then we put in maps-mapping PK3. Let's see if that's fixed our problem. So if for some reason you didn't specify the correct path on your install file, what you need to do is change it to the correct path, because otherwise your textures won't be showing up properly, right? So I clicked edit properties, and then you have the settings paths, and this is where you can actually specify the path. So what you have to do is go to where you installed. So for me, that would be Xonotic, and you'll see, click OK. And if it doesn't pop up immediately for you, what you can do is just close it out, restart it. And by default, it should normally ask you where the install folder is. If it doesn't, then you can do the trick that I just showed you. But now we have access to all the textures for the map. So let's look at some of these here. So now that we have the textures and we have everything set up, we can start working on our very first room. So I'm gonna put the grid to setting 7. It'll give us a nice, clean, nice big space to work with. Always make sure to zoom out so you can see what you're working with. Awesome. Okay. And you can drag these to make it the size. So I didn't explain this before, but each one of these panes is the block from like a different perspective. So there's the X, Y, and Z axes. So Z being vertical, X being this way, and Y being this way. just drag these handles and see, kind of get a spatial map for what's going on. You can always pan around using the right mouse button. So in order to make this a room, we need to make it hollow, because if we go inside, we'll see that this just looks into the void. So we want to select it and click this button that says hollow. When you zoom in, you'll see that we are now inside of a room. Now that we have the walls, it's up to us to texture them. So what you have to do is shift click the walls in order to select them, and also works on objects the same way. And then if you press T, that brings up the texture menu. And let's say this is a big shipping container. So we'll use this texture. Okay, and now we need a spawn point for our player. So all you have to do is right click on one of these blueprints and go to info player. So info player, we'll choose info player deathmatch. Okay, and this is about the rough size of a player, and that should be good. Now, in order to keep going, we need to compile the map into a .bsp file. To do this, you can go into the build menu, choose single BSP, it's the most basic, and you want to be careful where you put this, so you can find it later. You want to be careful here because if you save it directly in this folder, you won't be able to access it later from your file system. So I'm going to show you how to do it. So we're going to actually close this out. We're going to go back to our users data folder where we initially dumped the file that wasn't good. And we're going to go to Save Games, Xonotic, and here is where you're going to need to create a folder for each individual map that you create, right? So I'm going to name mine Z-Room, and it needs to end in PK3 dir in order for Xonotic to be able to recognize it. The convention for Xonotic is that you start with the designation map dash underscore version and then .pk3 dir. And then we need to create a new folder in here called maps. This is where we're going to be saving the map. So just as a fun bonus for you guys, I'm going to make another room, and I'm going to show you how to connect it with a hallway. So what we have to do is start out with just drawing another brush. Okay, and make sure that it's roughly the same size as your other room. Okay, and now we're going to select that and make that hollow right after we create another room. So you gotta make sure that none of these rooms that you create are going to overlap, or else you'll get a flickering effect as the textures try and overlap each other. So you want to keep things separate. Okay, and now we can select the Make Hollow tool. Right, so I'm going to select both of the rooms that we just made, and I'm going to make them hollow through the same process. Now what we have to do is select each of the individual walls that we just created. So you can either go through the manual view. You can go do this manually by just looking at the um, walls, or you can use the architect view, whichever is easier for you. Just be careful not to undo your hollowing. So let's, as you become more expert in this, it becomes a lot easier. Okay, and we're gonna press the X to get the clipper tool, and we're gonna look in here, and you want to be careful. You don't want to click. So this is going to create an infinite line through which things cut, and you can see this blue area is the new cut we're going to make. If we click enter, that's the section it's going to keep, right? But the problem is that now we have we've deleted part of the walls, and now there's a gap through which the players can fall. So what we want to do is actually keep both sections, and the way we do that is when we deliver the cut. When we deliver the cut, we want to actually press Shift Enter. Okay, Shift Enter. So we're gonna do an X. So, all right, and then another one. Okay, and now if we just select the walls, they're gonna and hit backspace, they're going to be deleted nice and easily. Seems we have a problem with the shaders. That's okay. You can just press T and then reselect the textures. And then this is why you don't want overlap, because you'll see that the textures bleed over each other. So we want to make sure that doesn't happen, or else you'll get the flickering. You'll get the flickering effect. But anyway, I'll figure that. That's just a quick thing we can fix by moving this wall out of the way for a second. So get out of the way wall. And we're just going to select these two outliers. They're left over. That's fine. And then move the wall back in position. Excellent. So that's all good. And now we can retest our map. I'm gonna give it another build. Launch up Xonotic. Xonotic. So right now we're going to test our map, and the way that we do that is when we reach the Xonotic interface, we're going to press Shift Escape, and that's going to bring up the command line, and we're just going to write in the ch map command and the name of our map. this should be the same file that you hit save. It should be named the same. Excellent. So as you can see, we just created our room and a connecting room. So this should give you the basics of starting out in the game.